Hey everybody, this is Kate.
And Devin.
Welcome to Remote Mini MedCrimes.
Oh my god, I miss you.
What's happening?
We'll fill everybody in.
Oh, God. So, we are not together. We are separate.
This is virtual.
But this is definitely virtual.
And what does everyone connect virtual with? The Rona.
We have the Rona in Kate's household, so it's my turn to deal with the Rona.
I'm not in the pod lab.
No,
I'm currently
this is so
sitting
weird.
I'm currently sitting on my living room floor.
I'm not going to lie. I have a lot of anxiety because I hope this works.
We got my remote virtual mic,
Yep.
but this shows commitment because it is like
100%.
9:01 p.m. We have put the children to bed.
Yes.
We're doing this. You have just finished research.
I literally just finished, and
It's like crunch time.
it really is. And we there's been some barriers to us getting together. You know, there's family commitments, and then I had the Rona in my household, so we've been isolating.
Vacation. I'm leaving on vacation soon.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So we really, really, really just wanted to put something together for you guys. I have a really interesting case. We're going to do sort of like a mini microdose again. It's going to be sort of a quick and dirty and a short one, but it's a really, really interesting case. And I heard about it when it was sort of circulating in the news a little while ago. So we're going to talk about it. It's going to be awesome.
God love the news.
I know.
Just kidding. I hate the news. Totally hate it. But it's okay. Here we are where I can see you. I can't feel you. Hopefully this doesn't mess with our vibe.
I was just so funny that you said that. I was just going to say that.
Oh, okay. So then our vibe's still strong. So that's
I feel like it's still strong. I think we'll be all right. So if there is a little bit of crispiness in the audio, or if things, sound like there's a little bit of a delay, we are using sort of different systems and things to try to facilitate doing this remotely. So it's an experiment for us, and we're going to do the very, very best we can because we love you guys.
Yes, we do. And speaking of love you guys, we have a new Patreon this week.
New Patreon, Adele Perry. Woo-hoo.
Adele Perry. I am convinced you are the Adele. So thank you, Adele.
Adele, you're a majestic centaur galloping through the forest with your spear, and we love you. And thank you so, 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 so much to you and to all of our Patreons for your support.
Welcome to the family.
Welcome to the fam.
So what is the number? Like Centennial's 100, right?
Oh, this is our
court. It's something, right?
Yeah, it's like not our bicentennial, but it's like, it's like
we're gonna call it a quartennial, and someone's gonna tell us that we're wrong. But
yeah,
we're
definitely wrong. But I don't know the word.
Episode number 25.
25, I feel like is definitely a milestone.
This is a milestone, I think.
I feel 25. Like it totally is, dude.
It's a great quarter number.
100%. It's a great quarter number.
Sweet.
It is sweet.
Awesome. Thanks to everybody who's helped to get us here.
Yes, you guys are. We couldn't have done it without you. We've had just an overwhelmingly amazing response. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your support. And
thanks to the Patreons, I have this fancy remote microphone that's allowing us to do this.
Yes, you did this. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, peeps. So, Yay! Kate, let's get into it.
All right. Today we are going to be covering Kimberly Clark Saenz. She is also known as Kimberly Clark Fowler, and she is a former licensed practical nurse, convicted serial killer, who was eventually convicted of killing 5 patients and injuring 10 patients at a Texas dialysis center. And it is pretty crazy what she did. Can't really believe it.
Oh boy.
Can't really believe it.
What time frame are we in? If you heard it on the news, it was recent, right?
Yeah. So this all sort of went down in the in around 2008. And then the trial was like in hold on a second. I think the trial was in 2012 was her conviction.
All right.
So I remember hearing about this. So
okay.
This is a good case to do sort of a microdose because it's one of those newer cases that, is a really interesting case, and it's crazy what this nurse did to these people. But also, there's not a whole lot of like background on where she came from and, what her upbringing was like. So we don't really have a whole lot of early life stuff to talk about. I wish I did, but we just don't. Some people, there's just not that information out there.
Maybe that's because she doesn't have a whole book written on her yet.
Well, that's the thing. It's these
like
new
no
cases.
biography.
Exactly.
We're just going off of news clippings and articles and
exactly, and then court documents, and there's just not a whole lot of early life stuff in there. People that have been around forever. They have that stuff, and some people just don't. So we do what we can.
So if anyone out there is an author and wants to take up on a biography so that we can have some early stuff.
Yeah, can we?
But,
can we do that?
I mean, she's a serial killer, so don't let her profit from it. That's my only thing.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Yeah.
No, thanks.
So Kimberly Saenz was born November 3rd, 1973 in Fall River, Mass. Where my New England peeps at.
Wow.
Yeah,
hey, we could drive there.
Yeah, I know.
Fall River.
Fall River. Lizzie Borden territory. So, not like I said, not a whole lot is known about like her childhood and her upbringing. But what we do know is that in 2007, she had relocated to Lufkin, Texas, where she was hired by DaVita Dialysis Clinic as a licensed practical nurse. Now, prior to this, we also know that her job history is pretty spotty and pretty sketchy. So, prior to having a job at DaVita, she worked at another hospital where she was let go because she had apparently diverted some Demerol. There was a dose of, or several doses of Demerol that had gone missing, which were later found in her purse. And then apparently she also attempted to adulterate a urine drug test at the time and was caught doing that. So she was let go pretty quickly from that job. So,
do you happen to know if she had to do any diversion or anything for the Demerol? That type of programming or...
I don't know, but I do know that she struggled. It was an ongoing struggle with drug use, like in general. So I don't know what she had to do, but they let her go with that.
Got it.
And that is when she relocated to Texas. And it seems like she was kind of trying to turn over a new leaf a little bit. And then prior firings, we know that she had been fired from a few other nursing positions and healthcare positions, but if we've learned one thing on MedCrimes, it's that healthcare entities
fired
and hospitals, they tuck
they
it away.
They don't do background checks.
They tuck that shit away, and they fucking forget about it, and they bury it under 78,000 pounds of everything.
Hashtag common denominator.
Yes, exactly. So, like, who knows what she was fired for and where she was fired from.
Right.
Sketchy shit. So when she resettled in Texas, she got married, and then shortly thereafter, she had 2 children. The drug addiction was an ongoing thing, like I said, and she was stealing prescription drugs from like pharmacies and the places that she worked at prior to this, and even was arrested for public intoxication and criminal trespassing back in 2007. Yeah,
that's not a good trait.
Not a good look for you, honey.
I'm not a fan of public intoxication.
No,
just saying. I mean,
just like in general.
That was probably me a few times back in the day at school. But if it's bad enough to get arrested, then you've had a problem.
We have a little bit of a problem. So things are kind of rocky in the marriage as well, because there were some like domestic disturbance calls, I guess, that the police responded to, one of which actually led to that arrest back in 2007. So she would continue to like struggle with drugs and then often like get clean and then relapse. And she did this like multiple times a year is what people are saying. So she lands this job that same year in 2007 at DaVita doing dialysis. And like I said, it kind of seems like she's sort of hoping to turn over a new leaf and, hopefully be successful at this job. But now being a dialysis nurse comes with a lot of responsibility, and there is a very steep learning curve when doing dialysis, because it really is very much its own niche. It's a very specialized field.
Right.
Now, most of us have heard of dialysis, but just in case you're not familiar, a brief little overview. Hemodialysis is the process of mechanically removing the buildup of toxins, electrolytes, and byproducts of, cellular turnover and metabolism from the bloodstream in patients that have renal failure. because our kidneys are very important for a number of reasons. So they play a role in the production of red blood cells. They help us to regulate our vital signs, our blood pressure, and they also act as a filter, simply put, for our bloodstream. So what happens is blood passes through the functioning kidneys, and all of those byproducts of like the cellular turnover, the metabolism, the medications we take, the foods that we eat, everything that would otherwise sort of build up in our system and cause problems gets regulated very carefully and then filtered out and excreted or removed by the kidneys in urine. And that's sort of why, a big part of why we make urine. Now, people can live with varying degrees of renal failure without requiring dialysis for many years, and typically
fortunately,
it can be
because we have
managed.
2 of them.
That's right.
There's that.
Yes,
you can live with one.
That's right. You typically can. And oftentimes when people get kidney transplants, it's they don't get 2 kidneys transplanted. They just get one, because many people can have adequate filtration with just the one kidney. People can live for a long time with varying degrees of the renal failure and not require dialysis. And a lot of times it can be somewhat managed by medications and just lifestyle changes. But sometimes if the kidneys are not working at all and it's become a point where these byproducts, these electrolytes, the urea, all rise to dangerous levels within the bloodstream, they can cause other problems like cardiac arrhythmias. You can have symptoms like
so
nausea,
let's basically
fatigue.
like, if you're, let's call it a strainer, and if your strainer, if
literally what it
like,
is.
For the non-med people, if it's like a strainer and it's blocked and it's not functioning appropriate and can't push the stuff out, your strainer is just building up and up and up. And
exactly
if that's our body, we ain't feeling so hot.
Not feeling good at all.
No.
Nope. So,
nope.
Once that happens, hemodialysis can be a good option for these patients, but being on dialysis carries a lot of risk, and it is quite the lifestyle and quite the commitment.
I was just gonna say, like, if you have to go on dialysis, like, that is your life.
That is literally
you can't go traveling. I mean, outwards of a night, because you're doing this 3+ days a week.
Oh, it's rough.
So,
Absolutely.
Any week-long vacations anybody's got taken or planned this summer, you
better make some arrangements.
Dialysis.
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you're committed to, like you said, sitting in a chair for several hours, several times a week at a dialysis facility. It's not like you just like stop in. This whole process, this filtration process, takes several hours. So it really is quite a commitment. What happens is they sign you up for like a dialysis seat time, and your seat time is really dependent on what their availability is. So you could have a seat time at 5 a.m. A lot of centers open that early, and you are expected to show up Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 a.m. for several hours to get your dialysis done so that you can go about your life. Some people have a 12 o'clock seat. Some people have a 5 p.m. seat. It's really kind of up to the center.
And so let's just say for a second. So these people are sitting in these seats at least three days a week for hours on end. Don't you think that they build relationships with the staff members that are working there, the nurses that are treating them?
I love that you said that, because I'm going to get to that.
I always do that, don't I?
Listen, you're jumping the gun.
Right? Like, shocker there. I mean, come on.
Surprise, everybody. Devin's jumping the gun. Surprise.
Sorry. I'll stop talking.
You're fine. You can talk all you want. This is your podcast.
But that's just what hey, like, you might have a nurse that you connected with during your 3-day hospital stay, and that person's always going to stay with you. But if you have a nurse that's hanging out at your dialysis center every single time you're there,
you build relationships.
That becomes a bonding friendship. Yeah.
100%. Absolutely, it does.
Now I know what this bitch did.
It's pretty insane. So, as you can imagine, the dialysis nurse's job is pretty technical, because they, of course, need to know how to access the patient, how to work the machine, and monitoring their hemodynamics while rapidly pulling off, like, probably liters of extra fluid, and closely monitoring for any potential complications. So,
it's technical. It's not easy.
It's not easy at all. They don't have time for much else with all of that going on. I mean, it's constant. So they are responsible, in addition, for cleaning and maintaining the specialized catheters and applying dressings over their access lines. And the other piece is that these patients, they typically have to have a way that we can access them for dialysis, right? So typically these patients will have received either an AV fistula, which is like a surgical procedure where they make a big dialysis vessel within the arm, or a specialized dialysis catheter, which can be hooked up to these machines. And these are like big external blood vessels, basically. And you're hooked up to the machine via that. After several hours, you get your filtration done, and then you can kind of go about your life. These nurses are, and when we're flushing and maintaining these lines, are also responsible for like putting dressings on the fistulas if they continue to bleed after they're accessed, and also flushing these lines with saline and often heparin. They use heparin a lot to keep the lines from clotting off. Heparin is a blood thinner.
Keep it open.
Yep, exactly. So, now, as you can imagine, like you said before, these dialysis nurses really get to know these patients so well because they have this set schedule, and so do the nurses. And it's a pretty regular schedule. So, I mean, these people are doing the same patients with very little change in schedule day in, day out. And, you get to talking, you build relationships, you build trust, you build rapport, all that stuff where, in one of those, longer term medical relationships. So it's kind of special in that way.
Like mine.
So similar. Exactly. It's so similar because these people are doing that for years and years.
What the average time someone might be on dialysis if they're waiting for a transplant?
That's a really
if you're
good
not
question.
Getting a kidney from a family or a spontaneous match through a friend or something, like if you were going straight through UNOS, like what the average time might be. I'm curious.
I don't know off the top of my head because it fluctuates often and it's dependent on so many factors.
I know it's severity and whatever. Like that's why I was just kind of wondering, like, what is the average?
That's a great question. I'd have to Google it. I'm sure there is an
Googling
average.
right now.
There you go. You Google.
I'm the Googler.
You're the Googler of the team. Absolutely.
I'm the Googler.
Yes. So pretty early off in this job, Kim has already been reported for being kind of rude and kind of curt with her patients. And a lot of the patients there who were like notoriously pretty easy to get along with and had been doing dialysis a long time and like really knew the ins and outs would sort of start dreading coming in and seeing Kim being their nurse because she was just like super unpleasant to be around. Now, spring 2008 rolls around.
Oh, you ready?
Yeah, go.
3 to 5 years.
Oh, that's sad.
So that period of time is how long people are on dialysis for. Doing this day in and day out if they ever get a kidney.
Wow.
Sorry, last interruption. Okay, continue.
No, you're fine.
I'm done.
You are
I Google
totally
for the moment.
fine. You're literally fine. So
I'm the Googler. I love that name.
So spring 2008 rolls around, right? And all of a sudden, we're seeing a massive increase in patients falling seriously ill during or just after their treatments. And in the month of 2008 alone, paramedics were called 30 times in the month of April alone.
That's like one a day.
That's literally one a day. You know how many calls they got the previous year in the month of April?
What?
2. Yeah. So
guessed.
Pretty stark difference. Absolutely. Now, Selma Metcalf was a dialysis patient that shortly after her treatment, unfortunately ended up in the emergency room several times for receiving too much heparin in her IV line. And this happened like a few times during her treatments, like in March. And then as we get into April, Thelma unfortunately went into cardiac arrest and passed away.
Like how much too much? Like obviously like not more than
we don't know, and I'm going to explain why we don't know. And that's honestly that's just a theory, and we're going to explain why we don't know. So patients soon started going more frequently into cardiac arrest. And under normal circumstances, like while dialysis complications can happen and patients can end up, needing an ER trip or something, like sort of rarely, dialysis patients almost never just like code during dialysis. That'd be very, very unusual. They take steps to like, support the hemodynamics as they're pulling off all this fluid and filtering all this blood. They take a lot of steps to prevent that. So one time while Kim, of course, was working, 2 patients ended up going into cardiac arrest under her care on the same day. Ooh. And so that was Thelma, who we talked about. So she went into cardiac arrest and died. And Clara Strange was another patient. So these 2 deaths, along with the string of hospitalizations and EMS calls, set off like this internal investigation. And they started, really trying to look at, is there a pattern here between when these nurses, when all these nurses are working, and is there a process that someone is just, unintentionally not following? Would this be, something with our equipment? We have no idea. We have no idea.
Right.
So everybody was really kind of like on high alert during this time. So, so April 28th of 2008 rolls around. Kim shows up to work for the day around 5 a.m., which is just before the center opens. And when Kim arrives, her charge nurse for the day, Amy Clinton, told her that due to staffing reasons, she would have to work as a patient care technician that day. And this is often done in a number of settings for many reasons. Say, for instance, you have a surplus of nurses for one day, but you have a call out on the patient care technician or LNAs, CMAs. Nurses are often pulled to work in that capacity because those responsibilities are well within their scope of care, and they can function as one if need be. And of course, they get paid, for being a nurse, but their duties for the day are a little bit less than that. And Amy would later recall that Kim's response to this was becoming like tearful and kind of like agitated and just pissed that she had to work as a patient care technician for the day. Like it was made very obvious that she felt like the role was like beneath her. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like, shut up, lady. You know what I mean? We all work as a team here. And
yeah, that's not going to build good team morale.
No, that's bullshit. And then in hindsight, though, she might have been upset because she would not have the access to the patient's dialysis catheters that she was normally having and the freedom to do what she wanted with them. So, like, who knows what
So she couldn't kill anyone that day. Maybe tomorrow someone will call out and she could murder.
She did try anyway. Now, the events of this day, April 28th, are like key to the investigation, and they are what like led to her conviction and finding out exactly what happened. So around 6 a.m. that morning, 2 patients arrived for dialysis that day. This is Marva Roan and Caroline Reisinger, and they're both due to be hooked up. So they arrive, they check in, and they're getting ready to settle into their seats for their dialysis treatment for the day. And people in the clinic, again, are on high alert, but other than that, things seemed fairly normal. Now, there are 2 other patients who are there as well, Lurleen Hamilton and Linda Hall. And they were sitting in their seats, and they were sort of watching these other 2 ladies get checked in. And about 40 feet away, these 2 patients, both of them sort of sitting next to each other, watched as they saw Kim, the nurse, squat down onto the floor, look around suspiciously, and she like seemed kind of nervous. They were like, no, she seemed like she was really nervous. She placed a large jug of bleach on the floor, and then they watched her pick up the bleach and pour a bunch of it into a cleaning bucket on the floor. She took 2 10cc syringes and filled up both of them with bleach. Her actions were like really kind of like red flagging with these patients, because they were like,
what the fuck?
Why are you looking so sketchy, for one? Like you look you look nervous. Like they remembered that she looked that nervous.
You're trying to hide it. Yeah.
Second of all,
we've all seen that look on people, when they're trying to think.
Exactly, obviously. So, like, for one, that was sketchy. 2, why are you using, like, a medical grade syringe? And, like, first of all, the floor is very unsanitary. Why are you working on the floor? And second of all, is that not bleach that you just drew? Like, we just watched you do that. So they literally saw her do this.
Maybe she was trying to make it sanitary.
Well, here's what she did. So these two patients, who are badasses, by the way, for like picking up on this and like trying to figure out what was going on. So
and this is the day she was the care technician, correct?
Yeah. So she had no business handling syringes or checking any lines or anything.
Right.
So so these two patients watched as she walked over to the patients that had just walked in, Marva and Caroline, syringe in each hand, and she pushed the 10cc syringe into Marva's line and then into Caroline's line.
What the fuck?
The two ended up falling really ill. Thankfully, they did not go into cardiac arrest, and thankfully, they survived. They did not require hospitalization. But later on, testing on each of their dialysis lines would reveal the presence of bleach in each of their lines. So it was confirmed that was bleach. So these two badass lady patients immediately called the charge nurse over and were like, so this is what we just saw. And
I want you to stop my line right now.
That's what I would say. I'd be like, get me off
where's the
dialysis.
Stop button?
Exactly. Yeah. So Amy, the charge nurse, obviously took it very seriously because everyone's on high alert trying to figure out what's going on. And so she confronts Kim immediately. And Kim said, oh, well, I was just planning to clean the dialysis machines. And sometimes they do clean the dialysis machines with chemicals like bleach, between patients to sterilize it.
I was going to say, not while someone's hooked up.
Right.
Not when you're hooked up.
Not when you're doing that. She's like, I was just getting ready to clean the machines. And I know. I was just getting ready to clean the machines. And so she was like, I was just I was just measuring it to try to get an accurate measurement. That's why I was using the syringe. So using a syringe, though, and putting bleach in it and not labeling it was like a direct violation of corporate policy. So given that rash of events, Kim was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but like, I'm sending you home for the day. Go home. Like, just what are you doing?
Yeah,
go home.
Get the hell out of here. Go away.
So go, Amy, for removing her from the situation very quickly. So she immediately calls the police because she's like, I don't know what's going on, but you guys need to investigate. Some type of thing is happening here. So the police get called. Immediately, the clinic gets shut down for 2 weeks. During this, there was a criminal investigation that opened right away.
No
I
kidding.
do commend the investigation here because I feel like, they did do a really good job, like being very prompt as soon as they got wind that something was funky. They they really did work hard to just like figure it right out. So
good, which is not always the case on some of the cases we've seen.
Exactly. A lot of these people are just allowed to keep going and going and going until, people just can't ignore it anymore. So this investigation is launched, and what they started doing was going through the Sharps boxes. And so they go through the Sharps boxes and they pull out a bunch of syringes because a bunch of them are what Kim had used, right, on her patients. And they start testing those for bleach. And they're coming back positive for bleach. Like a shitload of syringes are coming back positive for bleach. Immediately when that happened, with that plus the witness statement, she was fired immediately. And
you have the evidence plus an eyewitness.
Yeah, that's sketchy enough. Plus, like, her track record, like, you guys probably should not have hired her in the first place.
Anyone do a background check?
I know.
Reference check. Anything.
Who knows?
We're always short of staff, so we know that, people.
Anything. Exactly. So the State Board of Nursing is notified, and her nursing license was subsequently suspended pending an investigation. Now, the CDC actually got involved here by means of a couple of research epidemiologists, because they were called in to sort of help to create timelines of these events and to try to correlate them with like Kim's work schedule or whatever other nurse that could have been doing this, and try to figure out who like the most likely culprit was. And the investigation revealed that Kim had been present at every single incident during the month of April in which somebody had died or had gone to the hospital. So, I mean, there was a pretty strong, obvious correlation there.
That reminds me of Janine Jones.
Yes.
And Cullen, Charles Cullen, right?
Charles Cullen.
Yeah,
yes.
Both of them.
Throwbacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Absolutely. So The police investigation, while the CDC was working that out, included a seizure of Kim's laptop. And this was like some of the most damning evidence. It was really interesting.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So a search of her hard drive revealed Google searches for information about whether bleach could kill if given intravenously. So
okay, so I have what is coming to mind here, and I'm not trying to get political, no matter what side you're on. We all know that this was
I know
stupid.
what you're saying.
Was she trying to pre-Donald Trump and like just cure all sorts of things and just see if bleach through an IV would kill anything?
No,
I mean,
she was just trying to kill people because she was an asshole.
So this is proof that his assumption on how to kill COVID with the bleach failed. I mean, you can't do that.
I mean, you
evidence.
Can't. You just can't.
Thanks to Kim.
I'm pretty sure you don't need evidence to know that you.
Well, we all know this, but
can't do
some.
that. You never know. There are some people. We know that. There's some people.
Okay.
Please don't try this at home, kids. Please, for the love of God.
Don't.
So she searched that and in Google, unfortunately, and it was all over her hard drive. So that was damning enough for them to be able to make an arrest. They were able to link her to a total of 5 deaths that had occurred. And she was also charged, though, with 5 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, in addition to the 5 counts of capital murder. The deadly weapon, of course, being bleach. So during interviews, some of Kim's coworkers had said that Kim regularly expressed a dislike for like all of her patients. She would like roll her eyes and get like all irritated at everything they do and everything they say and anything they needed anything. It would just be like such a bother.
I'm so sorry they're a burden on you, Kim. Like,
I know.
I'm so sorry that they're here to burden you.
Why are
during
you a
your
nurse?
Shifts. When you're trying to clean the floor of the bleach.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you here? Like, I don't understand why you're here if you don't want to take care of people. I don't get it. And then coincidentally, a lot of those patients that she always complained about were the ones that like had fallen ill or had died. So another coworker actually recalled that Kim went on a cigarette break after attending to a patient, and soon afterwards the patient coded right there in her chair, and the other staff rushed to her and was trying to help, and then Kim had no intention of even helping. She didn't even come in from her cigarette break. Like, it's pretty awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm on my 15. You deal with it.
Right? Exactly.
Fuck you, Kim.
So she's awful. So one challenge that the prosecution faced, though, interestingly enough, was proving that the bleach had actually gone from Kim's hands into the patient's dialysis lines, because at the moment, all they really had was the 2 eyewitness accounts, which were super helpful. But
I was going to say, that's not enough.
But apparently it's not. What they needed was like a recording of her doing this, or something, because there was a concern that they wouldn't get a conviction because they didn't have any physical evidence that she actually physically put bleach into the IV lines. But to me, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because you've got syringes and IV
syringes
lines
that have bleach
that are both testing positive for bleach. So it's like,
I'm
do I really need to spell that part out? Like, do we really? Because there was an eyewitness account in there that saw her physically putting bleach in IV lines.
I was going to say, do they need... Right, and because wasn't that what got... again, throwback, Janine, it was the eyewitness about drawing up the vial, the unlabeled vial.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was the connection. But we have the eyewitness here now, so it's like...
It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't really know.
Any legal people out there that might be able to help us?
Oh God, please let us know. Please let us know.
Again, we don't know everything.
God, no, we know a lot.
Or a lot of things. We don't even know how to call this a quarter centennial.
Is it like in Hunger Games? What do they call it? The quarter quell? That's what this is. This is the quarter quell.
This is the quarter quell. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Oh, they are. They are in our favor. So at the time, almost no research existed on how to detect bleach in the bloodstream, because apparently it hadn't really been a whole lot of an issue before this. And eventually what they ended up doing was contacting an analytical chemist and bioterrorism expert by the name of Mark Sachaski. And what he did was a whole bunch of research and a whole bunch of testing on several different samples sent to him by investigators. And he discovered that in 9 of the samples, there was a peak in chlorotyrosine, which apparently is something that can only be explained by exposure to bleach. And he found that...
And again, I don't know everything, but chlorotyrosine and chlorine?
Chlorotyrosine. And I'm not sure if that...
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not, and I think there is obviously some kind of chemical connection there.
I am stretching way beyond my body of knowledge.
Oh, same. I'm definitely not an analytical chemist or a bioterrorism expert. So, and now he also found that chemically, what happens when bleach enters the bloodstream is that it causes the red blood cells to rapidly lyse or explode, which in turn rapidly releases massive quantities of iron into the bloodstream. And this is called hemolysis. And this is what leads to the cardiac arrest and the death, is the actual hemolysis. So a trial happens March 31st of 2012. And Angelina County jury convicts Kim of murdering 5 patients and gravely injuring 5 others. Now, prosecution actually sought the death penalty for her, but on April 2nd of 2012, she was instead sentenced to 5 concurrent terms of life imprisonment without the possibility.
You were about to just say 5 years, and I was about
oh
to
God,
go
no!
off my
I know. I would have
rocker.
lost it. She's too much of a psycho. Absolutely not.
Yeah, okay.
You never know, though. God, there's some crazy people walking around out there. So. She was sentenced instead to 5 concurrent life terms of imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the 5 murders, and 3 consecutive 20-year sentences for the aggravated assault. So she's like never getting out of there.
She ain't coming out.
She is locked up for life, baby. So she was only convicted of the 5 deaths and the 5 injuries, but those are all that they could really connect to her. And why that was all they could connect to her was because the investigation really only had about 2 weeks of medical waste to work with, because of course over time the sharps containers, the trashes all get changed out, and the tubing all gets changed out, and it's like it gets incinerated. There's no getting that back. So those are physically the only things that they could link her to, but unfortunately it's pretty widely believed that she's responsible for like a lot more deaths.
Almost all 30 of those that were called in April.
Probably all of them.
Do you happen to know how long she had worked there?
Less than a year. Yeah. I think 8 months.
She basically worked there long enough to figure out how to do it. And then
she was like, cool, I'm just
process and do it.
Yep. And bleach is it. And that's my decision. And I think I'm just going to start killing people with bleach because fuck everything. Like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's really, it kills me. So, I'm just going to end this by saying the 5 victims, the names of the 5 victims: Thelma Metcalf, Clara Strange, Garland Kelly, Cora Bryant, and Opal Few. And during her sentencing, I know, I love that name, Opal. That's so sweet. So during her sentencing, there were victim impact statements, and
I would hope so. Yeah.
And so the daughter of one of the victims, Thelma Metcalf, who was the one that went to the hospital a few times before,
that name is sounding familiar to me. So I must have. Yeah.
And then so she went before the judge and Kim, and she said to Kim, quote, "You're nothing more than a psychopathic serial killer, and I hope you burn in hell," end quote. And
so
that
true,
is the microdose of Kimberly Saenz, the psycho former LPN and convicted serial killer who murdered probably a shitload of people by putting bleach in their dialysis lines.
You got to be some crazy psycho to think about that.
Are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing with your life?
She's a freak.
You have to honestly not give a fuck about anything if you're going to do that to people. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around it. I can't do it.
People that have basically taken their lives and committed it to a chair, hooked up to a machine for 3 to 5 years.
These people have, I mean, a lot of you can live on dialysis for years and do okay, but like, let's be honest.
But there's no quality.
The lifestyle.
What's the quality?
Yeah, I mean, you can have quality of life too if you know. It's just there's this whole big lifestyle that you have to live. And
here's what I hear, and you can from, for example, working in a long-term care facility, and you've got someone who needs to be out at dialysis practically all day long, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're one of those 5 a.m. people, and you're back at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I hear you're wiped. You are wiped out.
Yes.
The entire evening, sleep all day long.
It takes a lot out of you.
Feel a little bit better on Tuesday because you're like, oh, all that crap's out of my body.
Mm-hmm.
So fine, I can do something good today because tomorrow I'm back in the chair.
Yep.
But, and then I also have seen people okay, so then they've done their Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Saturday comes around. You're feeling good.
Yep.
You're feeling good. Sunday, not so much because it's that one
been
time
2 days.
where it's not the every other day. Exactly.
That's right.
So you have 2 to 3 days of the week where you're like, okay, I could do something. Mm-hmm. I feel okay.
And sometimes you can go missing a session because you don't feel well or something, but you miss 2 sessions, you end up in the hospital. That's a big deal. It's a lifestyle.
Thanks a lot, Kim.
Thanks a lot, Kim.
Thanks a lot, Kim. Well, thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah, we're sorry that this was, if the audio was funky again, we're doing what we can and we hope it turns out okay. We love you guys so much and we just wanted to give you something.
What I'm hearing in my headphones, I'm really hoping is good. Because it sounds good. It sounds good in my ears. So
awesome. That's reassuring.
I think this was a good segue to show our commitment on things are a shit show right now, but we are still committed to getting episode 25 out there
because we love the shit out of you guys, and
I love what we're doing. It's fun.
Oh, me too. It's literally so fun. Yeah, we love it.
Yeah,
we're committed.
Awesome.
I mean, you can give us that. We are committed. It's happening.
Committed. So I don't have the yellow cheat sheet, but I'm gonna start off with, if you want to hear more from us, why don't you check us out on Facebook at MedCrimes Podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also follow us on Instagram at MedCrimes Podcast, or
you can send us a Twitter at MedCrimes PC.
Good job, you did the thing. Or if you wish to become a Patreon, you can visit www.patreon.com/MedCrimesPodcast, or email us your crazy stories. We want to hear about your jobs, we want to hear about your family, and we want to hear your crazy, cool, weird, scientific, medical crap that you just want to talk about because, we're all super nerdy just like you. So we want to hear it.
Or your Q&A.
Get to know
that
us.
Too. The Q&A.
Yeah,
Send us those.
We want questions because we have answers sometimes.
Not likewise.
Not a lot. So good luck with that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Stay safe out there.